Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. Kind of a revisit. Pipeworks. Yeah, it's their barrel-aged Abduction. I have not done the barrel-aged version before. I did a raspberry truffle one almost 10 years ago with my buddy Brad, and I remember liking the crap out of that beer. But we don't get a ton of Pipeworks out by me. Actually, in Jersey, we get none whatsoever. Every now and then, I see their stuff kind of drop in PA, and I saw this as a single on the shelf. Almost a year old in a can. This is from 07-24. We're in 02-25. So you're talking about a bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. Coming in at 13%. Pipeworks Brewing. Done and done. Label-wise, it looks like they're doing the same. The one that I had, that raspberry truffle Abduction, was not barrel aged, but it had a crappily drawing label. This one's kind of equally crappy in a very good way. Let's put it that way. So I'm intrigued. I want a barrel-aged beer. It's been a while since I've had something outside of, the core places that I typically get beer from. Let's see where this sucker lands. That is full. That is full. Give it a pour. Man, it is dark. Dark, and see where we land. I think we get a little bit ahead on this sucker. Nothing too crazy. Label-wise, like I said, it's endearing. And there's nothing about it that I'm going to sit here and flip out over about. But at the same time, it's a unicorn being zapped up into the old Martian stuffs and things. So, yeah, label-wise, not too shabby. Beer-wise, that is dark. I mean, it is a dark as dark could be kind of head on this sucker. I mean, you're talking about one of the darkest heads I've seen on a beer, period. And I think there's been a couple. That Mendocino thing from Weldworks, I think, was it Weldworks, I believe, was really dark. And this one's much the same with that just thick, dense body, kind of motor oil thicky kind of darkness with just that rich, super dark, ultra dark head on it. It looks all the part of a big, huge barrel-aged stout, but also something that is just dense and thick malt-wise. Just not even just a barrel-aged put to the side. This is just thick on thick on thick. All the malts all are belong to us. Words are hard right now. So yeah, I mean, from a distance, looks like a big burly stout. Let's give it a whirl. Let's give it a nose. Wow. Chocolate and vanilla, like gobs of it. So, one of the things that really kind of turned me on about that raspberry truffle was it was a base stout with the adjuncts added to it. And there's something about it that really just, the jamminess of the raspberry, the truffle, and this big vanilla kind of component that it had in it. This is just barrel and beer as far as I can tell, based off of the label and whatnot. So to get this amount of vanilla, to get this amount of chocolate, this amount of kind of like what I assume is going to be a sweeter kind of confectionery style coconut is really nice. And it's a really kind of robust cherry-like kind of bourbon characteristic out of this one too, where the other one, again, we're 10 years removed, so we're basing it off of memory. I haven't even watched the old review. It trades that jammy raspberryness for this big kind of cherry component. Very much Russian Imperial Stout vibes from a distance here. Getting into it, we'll see where this lands on a bittering scale, but I assume there's going to be a nice counterbalancing bittering on it, because I just assume that when I get this big kind of cherry note off of Imperial Stout, sure, you can get that from bourbon. Sure, you can get it from other things. When you get that rich cherryness, I always think of like Russian Imperial Stout. So it has this gobs and gobs of confectionery dessertiness to it while just being a barrel-aged stout. As far as I know, like I said, on the can, there is nothing here kind of saying we put vanilla in it, we put this in it, we put that in it. But the chocolate, vanilla, and that coconut is there in spades. You get that nice big bourbon characteristic. And honestly, based on the nose, you can tell it's a big beer, but it doesn't smell like it's going to be ultra hot. Sure, that can change with the taste. But man, it is a violent, in a very fun way, kind of aromatics on this. You're digging something that has volume to it. It's not kind of like tiptoeing through the tulips kind of thing like I just reviewed. I'm not going to name names, just reviewed a brewery beer as a triple mash, 18% beer. This beer is absolutely 100 times more impactful in the nose than that beer, which is 5% bigger and also barrel aged. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. Let's dive in. Cheers. Man, it's so fruity. It's like hard to believe this doesn't have like fruit added to it, like that raspberryness. that fruitiness, that cherryness. I might have to dig into this and look and see if this barrel-aged Abduction is actually that truffle raspberry thing, just because it is that fruity. I'm getting more kind of cherry notes, but I could talk myself into raspberry. There's a cool kind of water chemistry thing going on here too. I feel there's like a minerality and a salinity in this beer that adds this kind of cool, kind of like makes the beer a little bit more drinkable kind of component to it. But it's very, very tasty. It probably starts short of being like super S tier level kind of barrel aged stout for me. It's thick. It's not thin, but it's not ultra thick. I'd like a little bit more density to it, even though it's not even close to being thin. You know, in a perfect world, it would be that way. The fruitiness of this and the amount of vanilla you're getting from it is quite tasty, but I wish there was a little bit more barrel char to it. The actual stout itself does come off as a base Imperial stout, not like a Russian, so there's not a big bittering component to it. Again, perfect world if I'm writing this recipe, because I know what I'm doing. It just has a little bit more bittering to counteract that vanilla, fruity, malty, sweet on sweet. There is a little bit of oak tannins here. There is a little bit of dryness here. So, it has a little bit of tempering of that sweetness, but in a perfect world, I think a little bit of bittering can go a long way. Beef up the mouthfeel, beef up this bittering on this, and I think you're like world-beating status on this beer, but that's to take nothing away from where it stands now. This is a very fun beer. And honestly, being how fruity this is, and I'm saying ultra fruitiness, it's also like maraschino cherry-esque kind of fruitiness. Sure, you're probably getting a bit of that from the bourbon, like I said earlier, but I think you're actually getting a decent amount of it from the actual base of the beer itself too, and how that kind of yeast kind of worked off and how it kind of fermented out. It's a very, very fun beer, and honestly, I'm not going to sit here and put it in Mount Rushmore status of barrel-aged beers I've had as of late. We'll get to that when we get to that. But a very fun beer, and I'm glad I picked it up. It's markedly different than a lot of the barrel-aged beers I've had as of late. In a good way, yes. In a way that it makes it better than those other beers, not necessarily, but just had this kind of twist, this little curveball thrown on top of what has become a little bit of a homogenized category when it comes to straight bourbon barrel-aged beers. They tend to be, everybody's trying to hit the same target when it comes to those kind of beers. This one comes off quite a bit different, and a fun kind of respite from that BCBS clone that everybody strives for. I dig it. I think it's fun. I'm glad I got it. Let's put it that way. Let's cut to the chase and talk about it. Is this one of the better barrel-aged stouts that I've had as of late? Yes, Mount Rushmore says just on the outside looking in, but very tasty nonetheless. The fruity portion of the show here is really what kind of sells this beer for me. Value availability, I want to say it was less than $10 a can. I want to say, it was off the shelf in PA. Take that for what it's worth and leave you with, if you like what we like this beer. If you like your big barrel-aged stouts, fruity forward. Think raspberry, think cherry. Those kind of fruits, those darker, richer red fruits. If you dig that when it comes to kind of your barrel-aged beers, a la a lot of really well-done Russian Imperial stouts, even though this doesn't have that bittering level, at least it doesn't a year later. Might have been when it was hyper fresh. You will dig this. So let's do this. Let's talk about, if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff, you can go to Beer Massive Beers, type it in, or Beer Massive for the podcasting stuff. But I want to see what this beer is all about. Pipeworks. Barrel-aged Abduction. 2004. No, 24, sorry. Barrel-aged. Barrel-aged Abduction 2024. Give you the deets. It's untapped, so take that with a grain of salt because... the description on Untapped, which is typically quite wordy, it says bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout. No shit, Sherlock. Let's go to the source if we can. No. Barrel-aged Abduction. There's another listing on Untapped. I don't see anything from Pipeworks. So let's go to this. Let's go to Beer Advocate. No. Bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Stout. So yeah, I'm guessing that's the base. It's not anything crazy. Here, wait, I see Pipeworks on Instagram. Let's check that before we cut this video loose. Let's see what they have to say. Abduction, our barrel-aged Imperial Stout series is back in 2 new variants. Okay. So it is a base. And then they had two new variants. There's an Islay whiskey cask and a double fudge barrel-aged Abduction. So, if they had something going on, I assume they would call it out. So there you go. Reviewing the books. Hopefully enjoyed. Pipeworks, have you been to the brewery? Have you had their beers? Have you had this beer? Have you had this beer? Have you had their previous non-barrel aged versions? Have you had this over the years? All that fun stuff. Let's talk about it down there. Hopefully enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a little bit of barrel aged goodness right now. Hope we'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.